Well, it's turned into a beautiful Saturday where I am. The rain is finally over and has cleared out, and it looks like it's going to be just another wonderful, beautiful afternoon basking in the global warming, which is sometimes referred to as summer. Imagine that, summer. It gets warm in the summer because it's our reward for putting up with cold, miserable, rotten winters. If you've not figured this out with me, I hate winter. Hate it, loathe it, despise it. That said, I consider summer to be our reward for enduring that, putting up with it, and you know what? Doesn't bother me to get hot. I like it to get humid, and that's just summer. That said, I thought today we would chat a little bit about Donald Trump, Dave Chappelle, and Ray Epps. Now you're thinking, what does any of that have to do with one with the other? It doesn't. These are just topics that I have been thinking about, so I thought we would chat about it for a little while. Axios is reporting, and I think they're doing it to try to scare people. And if Donald Trump gets a second term, or third term, if Donald Trump gets a second term, he's going to purge bureaucracy. Now, they're saying that, first of all, to scare people, because I think the mainstream lying legacy corporate corrupt media, as well as the vast majority of the political culture in our nation, has figured out if Trump decides he's going to run again, he's going to win. Now, I know the two wingnuts over at Breaking Points, Sager and Jetty and Crystal Balls, they keep saying it's going to be a Trump-Biden rematch, and nobody wants that. Bull hawk, they don't want that. I am telling you that the conservatives in this country, the Hispanic voters, which are leaving the Democrats in droves and jumping ship to the conservative ticket, they're not going over there for Mitch McConnell. They're not going over there for Mitt Romney. They're going over there because they saw in Donald Trump America first, traditional values, and let's do things sane. Let's take care of America. Let's make sure we've got the oil we need. Let's make sure we're paying gas that we can afford and that our stores have stuff, because after all, immigrants come here. I know Nancy Botox Pelosi thinks so that they can be beholding to the Democratic Party to always vote for them for all of their free handouts and giveaways that they want to give them. But the real reason that most immigrants come here is they want the American dream. And they figured out really fast, if they are just living off of the handouts of the Democratic Party, that they're going to end up like the African American community. Oh, did I just go there? Yes, I did. They've taken a look at the inner cities of this country. They have figured out that the inner cities are the modern plantation. The Democrats are the plantation owners and masters. They tell people of color, live here, we'll give you free housing, we'll give you free food, we'll give you free medical. It'll be some standard medical, but we'll give you free. You just stay there because, see, you're oppressed. You haven't been given a fair deal, and you need things to be made equitable by us, the liberal white elitists who know best for you. If that isn't just absolute racism on steroids, I don't know what it is. But you see a number of black people who have realized that all of these years of the new great society that LBJ promised is really nothing more than modern economic slavery. You will own nothing, a handful of oligarchs will own everything, and they will feed you crumbs, and they want you to be Oliver Twist and just line up with your little bowl in your hand and say, "Please, sir, may I have some more?" And Hispanics are looking at all this saying, yeah, this is what we escaped. We didn't come here to live that. We came here to own businesses. We came here to make it, to achieve this American dream. And so they're leaving the Democrats. And this is freaking them out, because the whole reason they wanted open borders, the whole reason they wanted them here, was not to help them build a better life and blah, 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 wah, 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 wah. It was, we're giving you this, you will now vote for us forever. See, LBJ sold the black community on that he and the Democrats delivered to them civil rights. Therefore, you are beholden to the Democrats for the rest of your lives to vote that way. But in reality, the Dixiecrats, which made up the bulk of the Democratic Party in the 1960s, blocked civil rights. Civil rights got passed because Republicans voted for it. Republicans crossed the aisle, worked with Lyndon Johnson, and gave black people freedom and equality. Ba-da-da-ba-da! But it didn't get spun that way. It didn't get presented that way. So now, 50 plus years later, we have urban blight and decaying government housing and a destruction of the African American family, because the welfare system told black families, you don't need dad, we'll take care of you. Because again, it wasn't about making them better. Remember, the Democratic Party is what birthed the Ku Klux Klan after the Civil War. It was the Dixiecrats that gave us the KKK. But somewhere along the line, they figured out, the open racism is not tolerated in this country. So what we have to do is we have to mask our racism with liberal heartbleed, and it's not fair, and you haven't been treated right, and we're going to help you. And this is really all about the destruction of them as a race and a culture. It's why federal parks have signs up, don't feed the bears. Not because they think it's, they're trying to be cruel to the bears and not let a human that's visiting, throw a snack out to them. But there comes a point where the season ends and they close the park and people can't go in there. And then the bears and the wild animals have no idea how to fend for themselves and feed themselves, because they have become domesticated, tamed. Which is exactly what white liberals have done to black America. They quote-unquote neutered and tamed, and you can't do this on your own. And at the same time, it's the reason they push Planned Parenthood and make sure that the vast majority of abortion clinics are located where? In minority neighborhoods. Because it was Margaret Sanger, their founder, that called them human weeds. Are you putting this together? Please understand that's what this is all about. And along comes a Donald Trump who says, bull hawk to all of that. I mean, nobody talks about the groups that he put together and the forums that he put together and the black leaders that he met with around the country from all of the major inner cities, which are all Democrat, by the way. And he wanted to know, what can we do to really change your life? And Donald Trump was pushing and motivating corporations and businesses to invest in the inner cities, not to gentrify them and move black people out, but to invest businesses in there, give them places to work, a way to build wealth and an economy. Or as some revisionist historians like to refer to it, another Black Wall Street. Well, you can think of Donald Trump for that. So, Axios thinks, if they tell people, if Donald Trump gets back in office, because it's pretty much a given, if Joe Biden runs against him, it won't be a landslide. It'll be a tsunami. And I know what right away a lot of you are thinking, yeah, but they'll rig it and they'll fix it. The eyes of the entire planet are now watching all of this. And there comes a point when even the mad scientist has to back away. By the way, have you heard, speaking of mad scientists, the WHO is trying to scare us with monkeypox. We've got a pandemic on our hands. By the way, Jimmy Dore has been doing some videos and releasing some articles that, Shazam, Batman, guess what lab was experimenting with monkeypox just before monkeypox got loose on the world again? You guessed it, our friends over in Wuhan. Well, what does Wuhan have to do? Oh yeah, Corona, Fauci, putting all that together. By the way, I have it under pretty good authority. If you engage in non-abnormal sexual contact, you're not probably going to get, the primate virus. Just saying. You might want to do a little research on that before, again, you hit the panic button and put your mask on, which, because it's not an airborne virus, I guess you would wear the mask like a thong to protect yourself. Yeah, a little too much on a Saturday? I don't think so. I'm in that kind of mood today. All right, so Axios thinks they can scare you by saying if Donald Trump gets back in there, he's going to weed out bureaucracy. For years, we have treated groups like the IRS, the FBI, as if they are sacred cows that must constantly grow and have unlimited budgets. And apparently people close to Donald Trump who supposedly have leaked information to Axios have said if Donald Trump gets back into office, he is going to start slashing and cutting the federal government. You know what Ronald Reagan did that sparked the Reagan Revolution, which not only took him to his second term in an overwhelming landslide, but it really got the economy of the 80s rocking and rolling? Ronald Reagan had for 2 years a complete and total freeze on federal spending. He told every agency, you're not going to grow, you're not going to expand, you don't get more in the budget just because it's a new year. Nope, not happening. So Donald Trump running on cutting bureaucracy, I'm sorry, you're not going to get a lot of Americans shedding tears that he's going to cut the staff at the IRS. And I think we're all pretty much to the point, even on the conservative side of the aisle, though we support law and order, the FBI lately seems to just act like a bunch of jackbooted thugs. And I'm sorry to put it that way. And I'm sure that many of the boots on the ground are actually decent, patriotic Americans who love their country. But I mean, come on, we're kicking down the doors of old men and we're hauling them out and making sure that a CNN news crew is there to watch this in these pre-raid dawns. And what was their big crime? They knew Donald Trump. So I find this to be a good thing if he decides to run. And as Ted Cruz said, when Donald Trump finally makes that decision, once he announces, it is going to thin out the GOP hopefuls massively. Now you got certain guys like Asa Hutchinson. Oh my word. Or is it Hutchinson? The guy from Arkansas. He's going to reclaim the Republican Party. Nobody wants to go back. Sorry about that. Once again, my dog Fletcher wanting to make his presence known here. If it's not barking, he's knocking the camera over. Again, my apologies. Nobody wants to go back to Mitt Romney, George H.W. Bush style Republicanism. We don't want Mitch McConnell. We don't want Andrew McCarthy. We don't want Paul Ryan. We don't want any of that stuff where they come out, tell us what we want to hear at election time about cutting taxes and traditional faith and values, and then they get to Washington, D.C., and they rule and reign like libloons. We don't want it. Not buying it. You rhinos, die off, become extinct, go away. So this is only going to excite, I believe, a vast majority of Americans, even on the Democratic side of the aisle, because most people's lives is having to deal with all of the regulations and mandates and bullhawk put onto us by unregulated, unchecked, and unelected bureaucrats. The CDC. Where do they get to be the be-all, end-all? Even a federal judge has said, no more of this. You're going to just start handing out mandates. Businesses must do this, must do that, mask this, do that. You're going to start running this through Congress. Congress was elected to decide these things, and that's the process that the framers of our Constitution wanted to have, and that's what you're going to do. No more of these unelected bureaucrats just deciding they get to decide for all. That a room of 10 people gets to decide for 350 million people. Baloney. And we don't even know who these people are. Nameless and faceless. And they seem to have jobs then forever. Fauci, 40 plus years, making $500,000 a year. Are you kidding me? And he said one time, the president can't fire me. Because I'll bet nobody really knows how he got hired to begin with. So this is something that Donald Trump can absolutely run on. And I think his campaign for 2024 ought to be, let's save America. All right, so that's what I've got to say about Donald Trump. Moving right along, Dave Chappelle was apparently supposed to do a venue, and at the last minute, the venue canceled. I believe the name of the club was called First Avenue, and they canceled him because there was an online petition of 150 people who said that Dave Chappelle is basically mean and, transphobic, and he's a danger to the trans community. Really? He's a danger to the trans community. So what you're telling me is if we go to Dave Chappelle's estate and we start excavating, we're going to start finding the bones of trans people that he's offed and buried in his backyard? Give me a break. He tells jokes and he makes certain people uncomfortable. He makes everybody uncomfortable. Here's the thing. I don't even like Dave Chappelle. I don't like Dave Chappelle at all. I don't find Dave Chappelle personally all that funny on most things. The reason being, and I've talked about this before, but it's Saturday and we're just kind of chatting, so we'll chat this up a little bit more. He did a routine a while back where he was talking about watching a cartoon with his nephew, and he said, it's funny, when you're young, certain things you find funny, and then you get older and you realize, whoa. He said, I'm watching cartoons with my nephew and Pepe Le Pew comes on. And I'm like, whoa, this is really sexist and it could encourage rape. He fired up the woke culture to ban Pepe Le Pew, a cartoon. Warner Brothers will not produce any more Pepe Le Pew cartoons. You can't even find Pepe Le Pew cartoons. I just find it funny the guy who canceled Pepe is now being canceled. It's real easy for you, Dave, to go after a Mel Blanc who's dead because he did the voice for Speedy Gonzales, a white guy. And now here you are, a black guy getting canceled for telling some trans jokes. Apparently, all the left wants us to have for a comedian is Patton Oswalt, and what a dipwad loser he is. He's not even funny accidentally. The only reason audiences laugh when he first walks out, he's like a little fire plug with sneakers on. I mean, he's just. When I was living in Florida, the last year my son played Little League, and we went to the opening day festivities where all the teams march out onto the field. They brought out the T-ball teams first, and there was this one team, I kid you not. I think every kid on the team was about the same height. They were all these stocky little 4 and 5 year olds. I mean, just stocky, like little pit bull dogs. And they were all kind of roly-poly, like, little mini Michelin tire men. And the name of their team, this was perfect, the Lug Nuts. And that's just what they look like, little walking lug nut. Well, that's Patton Oswalt. I know he was on, what's-his-name show. Was it The King of Queens? And he was also on Everybody Loves Raymond. He's not funny. And he's constantly trying to do now woke humor, which there's nothing funny about it. So this club, over 150 petitions, which it was online, which means those people could have come from literally anywhere, not even necessarily where the club is located. At the last minute, they canceled Dave's show. The first show, when it was announced, sold out in like 15 minutes, 1,500 tickets, gone. So this club cancels 3 sold-out performances for 150 petitions, names on a petition. I hope they go broke. And again, I hate sitting here having to defend Dave Chappelle, who made his comedy chops doing a situation comedy about a dude whose basic daily adventure was, how do I find pot today? And he's a pothead. That is all Dave Chappelle is. And when he was talking about when we were in the midst of the pandemic and the lockdown, he did that special performance in his backyard here in Ohio where people were invited to come and sit socially distanced because Don Lemon at CNN said, we need to hear from Dave Chappelle on George Floyd. And there's Dave Chappelle sitting up there on a stage in his backyard, slurring his words, hungover, stoned, these streets is talking. I'm not going to be lectured to by a drug addict. I'm just not. He likes to defend LeBron James. I got no use for Dave Chappelle. But I find it hilarious that a guy that has actually fired up some of the woke culture getting canceled himself. Boom. And on that, we move on to Ray Epps. The New York Times is running articles now talking about the pro-Trump conspiracists that want to vilify Ray Epps. Well, I would remind the New York Times, it was their paper who last summer began asking the question, well, who is this Ray Epps guy? We're seeing these video clips of him saying, we need to go into the Capitol. We need to go in. And the people were shouting, Fed, 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 Fed. And now it's a conspiracy for us to say, why has Ray Epps not appeared before the January 6th committee? You know, where we have found Steve Bannon guilty of refusing to testify to go before that sham court. And he's been pronounced guilty. And here's a guy that we have overwhelming video evidence, and I've covered it, and video here and other monologues on the afternoon drive, saying we need to go into the Capitol. We see him at the point of first entry saying we need to go in. We need to go in. He pushed everybody else in, and he stayed out. And, of course, people have said, was he a Fed? Was he an FBI plant? And, of course, now you've got the New York Times calling that a conspiracy. Great, because what we have found out is usually about 5 or 6 months after something has been called a conspiracy, we find out it really was a conspiracy. It was a spoiler alert. We know that the FBI put the Proud Boys up to try to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, and that the vast majority of the Proud Boys were FBI undercover guys. You can see how my heart would break if Trump defunded them. What doesn't help, though, and right now I have to call it a rumor, that through a Freedom of Information request, phone records now show that a week prior to January 6th, Ray Epps and Nancy Pelosi talked about 12 times. I can't substantiate that. I have seen nothing that corroborates that. I have seen absolutely nothing. You don't have any authoritative news source. And I'm not even talking about legacy corporate corrupt mainstream media. I don't see anybody from Breitbart or Newsmax or even Faux Pas News or a Tucker Carl. I don't see anybody corroborating any of this. So right now that's a rumor. But when some independent conservative sites just take it and run with it, you're letting the left then be able to have the narrative. See, these people make stuff up. See, we get mad all the time, especially in these January 6 hearings, that they're making stuff up about the right. Don't do the same thing and then get outraged when they scream, you're lying, you're making it up. Look, do I think Ray Epps has a story to tell, like a real story, the truth? Oh, yeah. Do I think he was the setup to create a problem that didn't have to be? Oh, yeah. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, in charge of Capitol security. Where was the security that day? You know, supposedly they had these warnings this was going to happen. Yet it was a very mild police presence. I've talked to people who were there. I was talking in live time I had a couple of friends who were there in D.C. that day. And they said, the police, they're virtually non-existent. And the police we are talking to, they're so friendly. They're pointing us to the Capitol. The police open the doors to the Capitol and welcome people in, but we're told this was a breach. And the Speaker of the House is in charge of the security. You know, I've listened to some leftists talk about this, and even they've said, you know, when there's a BLM or an Antifa protest at the Capitol, the police presence outnumbers the protesters. The federal government knows how to put one of these things down before it ever gets started. So where was that presence on January the 6th if they really suspected there was going to be trouble that day? Or were they creating the trouble on purpose to lay blame? Now that's what I believe. But because I believe that doesn't mean I want to start then to bolster my story, make up stuff. And so right now, we don't have any corroboration that through a Freedom of Information request, there are now phone records that prove Ray Epps and Nancy Pelosi talked. Well, you know, Pastor Marty, where are they? Why hasn't Fox News or somebody printed, look, here's the phone log. Here it is. This is Ray Epps' number. This is Pelosi's number. Look, they talked. There's no corroboration. Listen, don't let the left be able to spin this as we're making it up. Let me remind you and let me leave you with a little piece of biblical truth. Truth, crushed to earth, will rise again. The truth will set you free. Now, sometimes the truth does take time. See, a lie has speed. Truth has endurance. Just keep telling the truth. The truth is on our side. And I know sometimes it gets frustrating, but the truth really is on our side.